podcast. It's me, Todd, and we have Andy. And this is the writer's block. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Hope you ate a lot of food. Um, I hope I ate a lot of food as well, I guess. Yeah. I hope we ate a lot of food too, Andy.
I hope so
Um,
too. I'm
I mean,
assuming I'm going to. I live with Italian grandparents, so
yeah,
it,
hopefully,
food is technically all we talk about in this
yeah,
household. So
yeah, food is one of those things in life that it really provides a lot of joy, kind of like music. It's one of those things where if you don't have it in your life, I mean, if you don't have food in your life, you're probably not going to live much. But it's a good thing to have. Good food, Italian food, fresh sauce.
you're technically not supposed to eat the sauce fresh. You're supposed to wait like a day or two. You don't eat it the same day you make it. Fun fact.
uh, that is. Let me write that down real quick. Let me see. Don't eat the sauce fresh. All right, so here's a random question. What does a Thanksgiving dinner look like in the Camara household?
this is going to be my third Thanksgiving with them now, and it's just the three of us. And
Mm,
it's just a basic Thanksgiving dinner. It's turkey, it's sweet potato,
traditional stuff,
yeah, mashed
stuffing.
potato, stuffing, yeah, all that
Okay.
stuff. Nothing out of the ordinary. Not like we're not bringing out like. Well, she might make an antipasto. I don't remember,
Yeah.
but it's not like we're not bringing out. It's not like Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve is a whole different ball game.
All right. Well, that brings up a follow-up question. What is dinner like on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day?
Christmas Eve is the seven fishes, or they try to have the seven fishes. It's alige, it's calamad, it's shrimp, uh, cod. I think she only does four now. She doesn't do all seven,
All
but
right.
there's a lot of food. Oh, and then there's a.
So all cooked separately or like mixed together in a
Oh no,
blender?
it's all cooked. So there's macaroni and alige, macaroni
Okay.
and calamad, and then she bakes the cod or the whatever. I don't know if she does or salmon. I know it's cod, I think. And then she has the seafood pate. Uh, what else? And
Very
then we have,
Mediterranean.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, so that's that. Yeah, it's a step up from Thanksgiving. That
Yeah.
was we didn't really have it last year because of COVID, but my first year, it was definitely like different than what I was used to. We used to have ham
Yeah.
or turkey on Thanksgiving or on Christmas Eve
Yeah.
at my other grandparents or other grandmother's house back in New York. So when I moved down here and I came and saw like all seven fishes and just so much food, it was just totally two different worlds.
Yeah. I think that my mom's usually makes some, I think she usually makes Italian or not lasagna,
So, well, that's
generic
technically
Italian food.
that.
Lasagna or like stuffed shell, something like that. Although we also sometimes have a ham. It's
Yeah, I
usually one of
don't.
those things where it's like make a lot of food, don't eat a quarter of it, and then
Mm-hmm.
it sits in the fridge for a while.
Yep,
You
that's
know,
pretty much how it goes.
yeah, finish it off by New Year's, hopefully.
I mean, do you have a typical Thanksgiving or food or?
Um, so yeah, it depends. So like for years, on Thanksgiving Day, I would be out of town with my grandparents. 'Cause my sister, and my grandparents, we used to go to Daytona Beach every Thanksgiving for they have this big car show at the Daytona Speedway. I think it's called Daytona Turkey Rod Run or something. I can't remember exactly what it is. I haven't been there in years, but we used to do that every Thanksgiving. So I hadn't had a traditional like sit down Thanksgiving meal that wasn't in a hotel until I was like probably like 18 or something like that, which is weird, in a way. Although it was also cool, spending a week in Daytona Beach because it was, you know, as a kid, it's like cool to get out of town. But since then, we usually meet up with family out in Winter Haven. We have this giant, uh, you know, meal where everyone brings in stuff. Some people bring macaroni and cheese, some people bring rib roast. Everyone just brings everything. Yeah, like one big like family thing. And so, like this year, I think I'm going to try to make fresh bread. See how that works out. And Like, yeah, so it's one of those kind of things. It's kind of like a family get together, hodgepodge, bring whatever you want meal. There's usually turkey and stuff like that, but there's plenty of other food if you don't want turkey. So it's
Hmm.
pretty cool.
That is interesting. That's kind of fun too to see what. Because when you said ribs, I would have never guessed.
Well, a prime rib or whatever.
Oh,
I don't.
prime rib.
Yeah, like
Okay.
the big
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I should clarify that. Yeah, my mom's boyfriend, he smokes it or roasts. I don't see. I'm not a barbecue not a barbecue, but I don't cook meats much. I don't know exactly what it's called or what the process is, but he, I think he roasted in the
I was
this
gonna say it sounds
thing.
like you're. I think you if it's a prime rib, it's you roast it
Yeah,
because
it's a
then you
while.
yeah. I don't think you would could smoke prime. I mean, I don't know.
I
You
don't know.
probably could.
It's really good. However, it
Oh,
doesn't.
my uncle has a smoker, so he uses that a lot
It's good stuff.
with Longhorn seasoning.
I don't know what my mom's boyfriend uses. He's got a cabinet with probably at least 200 different spices in it, and I don't know if he
Damn.
uses 10 of them, but
Jeez.
maybe he uses a dash of every single one. But it's really good. Like people, our family at Witterhaven specifically requested that he make the same thing again this year. I think he made it. 'Cause I don't think we did Thanksgiving last year because of COVID, but the previous year, 2019, I'm pretty sure we did. Pretty sure he made it for that, or maybe he made it for. I can't remember. He made it for something, and then the people were like, "Do it again because it
Do it
tastes good."
again.
Yeah, make same thing. Thing tastes good. Me want to eat good food. But yeah. So 10 minutes into the podcast, who wants to hear about writing when we can talk about good food, like
Food. Yeah.
rib roasts and
Or
cod?
I mean that brings up a question of how would you ever incorporate like cooking or food or like what kind of meals like your characters are eating in the story? Because I know I've read books where they have to like they put specifically what they're eating or what they're drinking. I find it to be annoying, and it's like I don't need to know that they're having white wine with you know clam
Um,
chowder and a salad.
I mean, sometimes I do write it. I mean, I don't know that it's worth it to go into super detail. Like the main character ordered a steak medium rare. They put the extra fork aside and used the main fork to cut through. Like I don't know. There's like certain details that really aren't necessary. I feel like about exactly what they're eating or how they're eating it, or if it adds to the moment in some way, or if it adds to the scene, then maybe. But
Because the book I'm reading now, it's a private investigator series, and the guy always points out that he's eating lunch, and yesterday he was meeting with his client, and all she did was drink her like 8 glasses of white wine and didn't touch her Cobb salad while he had iced tea. Was it iced tea? I don't even know, or a beer with clam chowder.
yeah,
It's like I get that you're trying to like there was a conversation that was important to the story that went along with it, but it's like I don't care that you're eating clam chowder.
yeah. I think generally speaking, like you could probably just generalize the food. Like the main character had a soup and a soda. You don't have to specify too much into it because it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. And well, you don't even remember what they ate. So like, what's the point of even going that detailed into it? Like oh yeah, they had a sandwich, they had a soda, they had a beer. Just some kind of like little tidbit of information so that like what they're doing. Like that they're drinking something. That they're eating something. That's really all you need to know, if you need to know it at all. I guess it depends on the situation, but odds are you probably don't need to write it
Yeah. I mean, they're published. I'm not, so I guess I can't critique it too
in.
much.
In that case, start really detailing what your characters eat. And then exactly how much. I had a quarter pound of steak, and a couple plates of mashed potatoes, and not the bagged mashed potatoes, but fresh potatoes mashed in the kitchen. Like really go into detail.
Yeah, because that's gonna send it over. That's gonna be the tipping point to
You
where
could add a whole page to your novel by just really detailing exactly what's being eaten. Just list all the ingredients. Yeah, that sounds absolutely wonderful.
yeah,
Just start writing cookbooks.
I could.
That's what this is all leading to.
You're writing cookbooks, yeah, Jesus.
Camara's Kitchen Cookbook. Recipes from Grandmama.
Kitchen spelled with a C, so it's 3 C's.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what you call art right there.
Yeah, it's art right there. Media.
Media. Oh man.
So what are we talking about today? You recently watched a webinar
I did.
by the Tampa Bay Times, previously known as the St. Petersburg Times.
Yes. Oh, nice shirt.
Yeah, it's such a random shirt, but thanks. Your shirt's pretty cool too.
Thanks. It's a brewery back in New York, upstate New York. Yeah.
Yes. We're at in upstate New York. Is it in the
Adirondacks? Yeah.
right in the middle.
Right in the smack dab in the middle.
At the top of one of the peaks or something like that.
Top of Whiteface Mountain, yeah.
That'd be cool. Actually, take the ice up there and melt it for your brews. It's an idea.
That's definitely an idea. But yeah, there was a webinar with Ace Atkins and Lisa Unger, and I found it appealing because Ace Atkins is one of the state writers for Robert B. Parker's novels, and he's my favorite author that I've been reading a lot. So I was like, oh, I'll sign up for it. And then after the first 10 minutes of everybody complaining that, they sounded like they were underwater. And
sounds like fun.
It's just blowing up the chat, the Zoom chat. It was so unnecessary. But after that, it was really interesting. And they started off with, they talked about social media and modern technology and incorporating that into their novels. And Atkins actually said he doesn't really like putting modern day cell phones or using social media in his stories, but feels like he needs to, because of the modern times and what he's trying to write about. And I know we talked about before trying to read or try to get away from modern, issues or ideas. So it was interesting to hear that authors don't really like incorporating that sort of thing. And then Lisa Unger actually said her book was about how texting and online dating, well, it incorporated that, can affect the way we talk and then meet up with each other. And she finds it interesting. So she liked to incorporate it a little bit more than Atkins did. So I guess that's the first prompt would. So do you care, like if you would write a new book in the next year, would you care having modern technology, or do you prefer having, it to have, old police pagers and, stuff like that?
It depends on the story.
Yeah.
I tend to use, it's like when I write a piece that takes place in contemporary times, I tend to use whatever technology is available in the time. So like in my previous couple novels, I would utilize, maybe for, there's the character will use a dating app or something like that, or they'll use whatever, and so I don't have any problem with it. But what I would say is that there is kind of like this weird, I don't know what genre I would call it, but there's a category of media, because this kind of applies to films or television as well, where in their settings they leave out certain tech or key indicators of the time period. So like if you ever watched if you ever watched the show Riverdale, or if you played the video game Bully, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about, where that game and that TV show, they seem to be taking place in the time when it's released, in contemporary times, but you can't really place it. Like it could, because the technology either seems like it's older than when it takes place, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure Riverdale is, I don't know if it's a spoof or a runoff of the Archie comics back in the, yeah. Okay. Cause I've read those. I've never seen the show Riverdale, but I've read the Archie comics.
Yeah. I don't know if I could recommend the show. I mean, it's good, but sometimes good because of how bad it is. But I don't know, that's a whole other conversation. I used to like the first season I thought was pretty cool, and then it in some ways it got better, and then in some ways it got kind of far out. And but that's a whole other question for another time, I guess. But probably I don't. It's not a bad show. It's worth it if you have Netflix and no other shows to watch. But the reason I bring it up though is because it the show itself it takes place now. Like the new season just came out, so it's taking place in 2021 or 2019 or whenever the season comes out. So it's contemporary, it's modern, but it feels like it could be taking place in the 60s sometimes, or it could be taking place in the 80s, because the cars are older or the music is, the music's all over the place, but like the whole show's all over the place, to be honest. But the only reason I bring it up is because the setting itself is kind of, it seems more, or the time period of it seems more vague because of the lack of technology. And I think that's an interesting dynamic because, and this also connects to the game Bully, because there's like one scene that'll have a laptop, but then another scene that has a computer from the 1980s, and there's not really much advanced technology, and so you kind of feel like you're in this loop that goes through the 80s and 90s or something like that, even though it probably takes place in the late 2000s, maybe.
Okay.
Anyways, it's the whole point is the effect that the absence of technology can have on the setting. You can make it feel a bit more timeless in a way, a little bit more maybe nostalgic as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever watched or read or seen anything that kind of fits that description, where it's takes place now, but it feels like it's not taking place now. You know what I mean?
Off the top of my head, I can't think like anything. I don't think so.
No.
Not that I could think of.
It's a very like weird niche category. Like I can only think of those two examples, to be honest. But it's neat in that it feels nostalgic in a way, because it feels like it's taking place in the past, but it takes place like right alongside,
Right along. Okay.
right now, right when it's released. Like that Bully video game came out in 2006, I think, 2005. So playing it in 2005, you're thinking, oh, this just came out, this is kind of cool, but like it feels like it's 15 years ago or so. It feels like it's a different time, or maybe some kind of like parallel universe time frame where
Mm-hmm.
technology didn't advance past 1990. It's I don't know how to perfectly explain it, but that's kind of that was my first thought when you mentioned absence of. I mean, I don't know what that's like absence of a lot of tech, I guess, in those ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I think I haven't really thought about it, but I know one of the short stories that I used my novel characters in, I happened to mention Facebook to get like the missing teenagers out, out on Facebook to say, be on the lookout. But I never really honed in on that. But because they talk about like it kind of really encompasses, like it's not plot driven, but it's there because they use, I think in Atkins' new book, the girl uses social media to prove her innocence, because it's about actually a 1998 murder case in St. Pete or Ybor City, I think, that he covered because he used to cover for the St. Pete Times. So he used like that kind of storyline, which we can talk about later, and then revamped it to modern times and made it like the plot for his story. So he, like, I guess, modernized it. And the Unger new book, hers was about online dating, because it was called Last Girl Ghosted in New York City.
Rip.
But because she also brought up that social media is a way of telling people your daily life, even if you like realize it or not, the way you post things.
Yeah.
And in a way, she's like, I tried to talk about it in my book, but she didn't know if she really got it or not, is that it disconnects you more than it actually connects you to people.
Oh yeah.
Which I found very interesting. I kind of highlighted that line, that because I've never even thought about it like that. I know it's a little like off touch from writing, but
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, as a side comment, yeah, the long-term effects, even short-term effects of social media in general, like I don't know that it's really all that positive. Like a lot of, I think moving forward, I think I wouldn't be surprised if we probably see like a turnaround on that in a way where maybe a lot more, how some people now they will take like a week off of Twitter or something like that. Put the phone down for a certain period of time or whatever. Just like social media blackouts in a way.
Yeah.
Just
Well, because you think about it, how like anytime I promote my story, like a new story from my website and put it on social media, and it doesn't get the jump that I'm looking for. You're like, okay, this sucks, but it's really, you really don't even think that you're not really connecting yourself with it because people are not always on social media. They're busy. They're not seeing what you're posting all the time. So it's like they use, I guess sometimes you think of social media as like the main focus on everybody's mind. They're always on it. So it's just like, okay, this is how you're going to promote yourself.
it's a form of like validation and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And how you have social media influence now that make gazillions of dollars to do 20-second short TikTok, whatever things,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
But
Just
that's a
like,
whole side.
I was gonna say, like,
Thing.
when you take that whole framework and you apply that to like everyone that's in like high school and stuff like that. Like I had Facebook in high school, but I never used it
Same.
for
No.
I used it for Facebook Messenger, just for like group projects. I never actually posted pictures of my coffee.
Facebook memories, some of the stuff that you put on your, it's like, oh my God, how the hell did I have friends?
Yeah, well, I didn't put anything on there.
There's-
I've since deleted that account actually because I never use it, and I kind of regret deleting it, obviously, because now, I'm kind of missing that established Facebook presence that I could be using to market my books. But at the time, I was like, I don't want this anymore.
That's the only really use I use Facebook for now, is to promote my book and writing and stuff. Well, I don't have a book, but anyway,
Not yet.
not yet. And then after that, they jumped into crime fiction, and they both said it's kind of like journalism in a way, because you have to be relevant and incorporate like what's going on, which I thought was interesting. Being like,
Yeah.
because you have to find, like, you got to make sure you have like Unger had a clinical psychologist out in California that she used both for herself but also research to, like, for her books, if she incorporated like psychotherapy or whatever in her novel. And that was interesting because I realized that as I was writing, I was like, I have to go back and make sure that what I'm saying is actually what police officers do. Because I'm not a cop. Never studied to be a cop. I've only ever watched or read crime shows. So like, you can take and twist it a little bit, but it can't be skewed too much.
Yeah. Like
which makes it a little bit harder. Especially in my case, when I'm writing small town, like it's not like you're watching CSI where they have all these fancy high tech labs.
Yeah.
You have to send all this, all the evidence out to somebody else. Like you could have a
person or something.
Yeah, that's how I did it. You can do state or county. I did county.
Makes more sense.
Because the Robert P. Parker series, the Jesse Stone one that I like, they use states. Homicide and stuff like that.
Where does it take place at?
It's Massachusetts, but it's right out. It's called Paradise, Massachusetts. They put it on the coast near Gloucester, but it's near Boston too.
If I recall, Massachusetts is a pretty small state, right? Comparatively speaking.
Comparatively, yeah, it's still. But it's small, but it's still.
Is because like theoretically, I mean, it's. Like you still wouldn't want an entire state probably having to send all of their evidence to one location, but you could have like somehow you could have it divided by population, like the Boston area or whatever. And then I mean, I don't really know much about
I had a couple friends that are cops, and there was one friend from high school that I thought I could reach out and use for information, but we kind of lost touch after a while. So I'm like, well, I can't use him anymore for information.
Just give him a call.
I could, but
or go to his jurisdiction and kill somebody, and then he'll come to you.
Actually, I could fly to upstate New York, kill somebody, and then wait by the by me like, okay, I'm going to watch you do this in my book so I can write it in the next 40 years.
Yeah, right while you're in prison, and then when you make a lot of money off of it, just buy your way out. I'm sure if you paid the right people, you can get out.
Probably if I had, yeah, I could
And then
find
you
a
can write
good
a story
defense
about
lawyer.
that.
There you go. Now, and then after talking about crime fiction, they actually moved into endings, which we've talked about before. Like a bunch of the stuff before they got into, I guess, viewer questions, a lot of the topics they talked about was what we've touched on before,
Yeah,
which I found interesting. I was like, okay, it's not it's not just small, like independent, minute authors. The big name author, New York Times bestseller ones actually have to think about this too, like in a way.
it makes sense. Yeah,
So Unger says she doesn't come up with an ending. She's organic. She says she likes to have a natural evolution through the story, and then see how the psychology of each character grows. I was like, huh, that's pretty interesting. Because I think the question was, how do you, if you have to write this like bang ho fight scene, like there's going to be blood all over the walls, how do you set yourself up for it, I guess was the question. Like, how do you mentally prepare to write this? And Unger said she doesn't really have, like, she does, if it happens then it happens, but she doesn't go in. Hold on. Sorry, my cousin needed a hair tie. Anyway, probably to play with my cat. Anyway, so going back to the endings, like, so she doesn't have a mental like framework. So, like I know I've said I know how my story is going to end, and I think you said how your story is going to end.
sometimes. But now that I think about it, my first and third books, I think I had a general idea of where I wanted it to end, but the exact structure, the details, I didn't really have that. It was like kind of like how, like, at the end of the bad guy loses, right? But how does he lose? Who else might fall in trying to make them lose? Like the whole situation, like the whole framework isn't completely built yet.
So yeah, but I know how my novel's going to end. It's a matter of how the hell do I get there?
Yeah. How would like so you could write the ending to your novel right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like
full detail. I could give you a full, I don't know if it'd be a full page on what's going to happen. I don't want to, because then it will ruin the whole, you know what I mean? But I could I could tell you off air, like verbatim, how I want it to end.
So it's because like for the fantasy stories that I want to do, those I mostly know how they're going to end. But like I've got a number of other stories I'm working on. Like I guess for that I've talked about it on occasion, The Sound of Silence. I know how that one ends. I'm kind of just working towards that ending. But for the climate one that I'm working on, the dystopian apocalyptic future in a way, that one, I don't really know how that's going to end. I think I'm just going to piece it all together and see what happens.
Well, because with my Irrational series, I know how each story was going to end, but it's still like my last. I don't know if I'll have another one published by the time Thanksgiving is here, but theoretically speaking, if I don't, I knew how the last one was going to end, but it's still vague enough there's not really an ending to the series. And I know I did a poll and people want more, but that's a side note. Anyway, but I knew how
Christmas is coming.
Christmas is coming. I knew how each individual story was going to go end, but as a whole, I don't know I don't know how I'm going to end it, because it's up in the air how, if I want to write another story that before the third one that I want to put like another prequel sort of thing, or
I have a suggestion. All right. So the ending to that entire saga could be the beginning of your novel, a murder.
I
I
could
don't
do
know
that
who gets
too.
murdered.
Someone's gonna get murdered. That'd be something.
Maybe
Is
not.
it?
Maybe not a
That'd
good,
be
but maybe.
something. That would be interesting. Because I incorporate like a side note again, but I mashed together all three and they're 12 pages. So I'm like, wow, it's more than my novel.
Keep on
But
read.
and
Imagine making an entire novel in second person.
I think that would be fun, honestly.
Give it a shot.
I don't know how I would do
I mean, you probably would want to outline it a bit more.
a lot more.
But yeah,
I wonder if that's ever been done.
I'm sure there's got to be second person novels out there, but it's probably really difficult to write.
Yeah.
It's a whole different way of writing it. Like I don't think people are used to writing in that way, or even thinking in that way.
Yeah.
Out like
Well, before we continue with the characters, we should check out Todd's second person story that he just published on his website.
Yeah,
to see how it compares to mine and see how much better it's going to be.
Well, I will say that our two stories are going to be very different. I mean, different in a way, but it's like
if I know which one you're talking about, I was like, I don't know how much different it actually is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like there's not like a lot of. It's like in your stories, you've got the driving and the throwing up
and the alcohol.
The alcohol. Whereas in my story, you're mostly just stationary. You're walking back and forth in your room, and you are kind of like contemplating all this stuff going on in your head. It's basically a story on unrequited love, and you are trying to figure out how to go forward with.
Well, it's funny because I have an idea kind of where the next story would be another prequel. It would be in between the second and third one, but you would be stationary. I'm not going to give it away on camera, or in case it doesn't work, or if it does work, because I have one in like the works that basically could be sent out from like a recommendation that you gave me from before, so that's like ready to go. But I'm not. Yeah. I don't know if I want to put that out there yet. Okay. Anyway,
the story, so I say it's about unrequited love, but it's more like you think it's unrequited love. Maybe it's not, but it's kind of like going through the whole the motions and emotions of being in love and all that stuff. And it's not really.
Yeah, we're not that far off. It's not that far off.
Yeah, in this story, you're not going to go throw up in the driveway.
You're not going to. No, you're not going to throw up. But
I will say, like yours are a bit more fast paced. I feel like yours are more like reading yours. It's like I want to keep reading, whereas with this one, it's more. I don't know if it'll have the same way because I originally wrote this as a first person story, and then I rewrote it as a third fairly recently, and a couple of days ago actually. Well, 2 weeks ago from when you from when you watched this, I guess. November something. I don't know.
25th. It'll be November 25th or 26th.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wrote it November that 9th, I think. I don't know. Time is an illusion. It's not real.
Just if anybody doesn't know, we pre-record these, okay?
I mean, by now, if you've been watching them, you probably know by now because I think for Halloween we announced. Oh yeah, it's Halloween, even though it's October 10th. I thought on a side note, in the future we might need to shorten the distance between the film and production date to the release date. That way we can get information out quicker because we're announcing new stuff on stuff that's coming out. Like the story that I just released came out Monday. What's today? Friday?
It came out the 8th, and we're recording this the 12th, but it won't show up until the 26th.
Yeah.
So that's 2 weeks. Yeah, we might have to figure that out.
So, there's a number of ways we can do this. We can record earlier Friday and release day of. That's
an option.
So, but we'll see.
We'll figure it out.
We'll have to work on that in our roundtable meetings with the production crew.
Yeah. So another interesting take that Unger had, she touched on this whole character part more than Atkins did. And she said she likes to see who the characters are and how they mesh together well. So she doesn't really have an outline of it, but she'll continue to go, like, she'll write, and then it's organically, like, as she's writing, see, like, if this character works well with this one, and so on and so forth. Like, for me in my novel, I already have Chief. Like, I have one character and the other one, they don't really get along together because one's jealous of the other one. And then I have the other two who they riff it, the way they riff it's funny because it's kind of like it's brother sister, but also like, yeah, it's like older sister younger brother sort of thing, where the sister's trying to like help the younger brother out in a way, but they're both, because one's a veteran cop and the other one's new, so she's trying to help him out, but he can be stupid and just like gives it back to her, and it's an interesting dynamic that I try to flesh out. I need to work on a little bit more than how I just explained it, but
It does sound
but
riveting.
but it's I guess the point I'm coming across is that I already know how these characters are going to interact with each other.
Yeah.
You know, not I'm just going to go in today and see if character one is going to work with character three, or character two works with character three more better. Better.
Mhm.
I don't know how that, if you would do that organically, like she does, or you already have an idea of like what your characters are going to
It's a little bit of
work
both.
with. Yeah.
Some characters, the way that we design them, the characteristics you give them, and the traits, they're almost designed to act in a certain way. If they're more antagonistic or if they're more aggressive, they're always going to play that kind of role. And so there are a number of characters in. So my first book probably had the most characters I've ever had to work with, and they were. There's just one character I'm thinking of is this guy who was, I forget his name. He was a history teacher, and in the ensuing chaos of a zombie apocalypse, he wanted to run for mayor of this post-apocalypse town, and he was really mad because he lost. He said, like, he's like always antagonistic against the main character and a whole bunch of other people. It kind of backfires later on in the future, but every interaction, that antagonism plays some kind of role in the interaction. So like, even like no matter what idea or plan that I'm working towards, like, that bears itself out in the conversations, in the dialogue. So it is organic in a way, but it also structured in that way, if that makes any sense.
No, yeah, no, because the end, or this character is always antagonistic, but it depends on what character he's talking to and how he's going to act towards them in a way.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
like this particular character is like a little piece of crap, and he's like always trying to undermine the main character. Even in it's like he's even in the little follow-up novella that I wrote, the Triple Entente, if you ever want to read that. Which is basically just like an additional few chapters, or I think it's additional 10 chapters to the main book, but not nearly as long. But he's doing the same thing, but in a different setting. And yeah, so some characters, like, I also kind of like I designed him for that purpose. But so like you could make the argument that he's not even a real character, because all that defines him is that antagonism and that desire to undercut the main character and their goals and their progress in service of their own self-interest and so forth, which is probably what a lot of people generally do, I guess. And not a lot of people, I guess I should reword that. That's what some people do, I guess. Right? I don't know. I don't know how to word it, but
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, bad guy though. I don't remember if he dies, but I hope he died. But I should know this stuff.
and then we transitioned to how Unger then draws back to nature, which we've also touched on in the cliche episode. And she said, going back to nature or the woods is like going back to simpler times. That's how she compared it, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
And then she also said, which I've never thought of, but it could be interesting to incorporate, is houses in her stories are treated like people, and how what kind of energy and experience that happen within them bring to the story and the plot and what's going on. So if there's a house that she describes as a character growing up in, and that brings some sort of energy, or an abandoned building that a murder happened in, that brings a different sort of energy. And I was like, that's, and the way, I can't really fully recall how she described it, but I thought it was interesting because I never thought about using, physical structures as a means of just like moving the plot forward even more than just using characters and dialogue and different kind of details. So I don't know if you would ever think about doing something like that, or ever thought about doing something like that.
I never have. I've seen it done before, but yeah, it's buildings are just buildings in my books. There's not. I mean, there's not really a whole lot of significance to them. Not yet. Maybe in a future book.
Yeah.
The only way to know is to follow my website or to follow me on Twitter.
Quick plug.
Yeah.
And then they got into like how many books they write a year, or how many manuscripts they write a year. And Unger said a book a year is comfortable, and she thinks that writing is easier than not writing. And she takes a couple of days off of writing at a time, but usually it's like almost every single day.
I do think a book a year is reasonable.
Oh yeah, if you have the time.
Yeah, well, even working like I've written all my books while working a full-time job, and I think the last one I was in school as well. Technically, I think the first book I wrote over the course of like 3 or 4 years. So maybe that doesn't really fit the same, thing. But the last two I actually wrote them within 4 or 5 months. So, but yeah, it's I think part of it is just finding your rhythm,
Like that's what Atkins said. Actually, it's a compulsion, and it's what drives us. Mm-hmm. So kind of like what you were saying.
It's like the last two that I wrote. So the second one I wrote it in 2018 during the summer, and I got this like, I think I was gonna write it during the national, what was it, NaNoWriMo, the National November Writers Month, which actually, hey, it's November. I wanted to do that. You're supposed to write, I think you're supposed to try to write an entire manuscript in 1 month. It's a hell of a challenge.
That's a hell of a jeez.
You should look it up when after we've concluded our filming. But yeah, NaNoWriMo. I was going to do it in 2018, but I really wanted to write. And so I started writing like a month or two earlier. I ended up finishing. I think I finished writing it in November, actually, which is, actually, I think, I can't remember. Damn my memory. But I think I might have written that one in almost a month. Because it was a rare moment where I was like really motivated to write. And it was just like, I think I wrote like 55,000 words or something like that, 53,000 words, which isn't a long novel. I think it's only 200 pages, if that. But it was like, it's really fulfilling. I feel like when you have that kind of energy and you're really like just, well, not writing out, but typing out, when you're really like going crazy, when all you can hear is the sounds of the keys going back and forth. Yeah.
Well, because it's funny because that transitions into them saying some days writing is great, other days it feels like work. And then if you force the creativity, it's much harder than when it comes to like naturally, like you just said, you're in the zone.
And the finished product itself suffers because of it, I would say.
Yeah.
I've got work that I forced out because of deadlines that I give myself, and then I've got works that I let happen naturally and organically as I was able to do it, and you can see the difference. Like the final short story I wrote for my short story compilation anthology or whatever. I I was marketing this collection as, well, it's, you want to buy this one because it's got an extra story that's not available anywhere else, because I had individually released all the stories on Amazon, which in hindsight I should have just put them on my website, you know. But anyways, so I was releasing this March 2019, and I kept putting off writing it, putting off writing it. Finally, I think 2019 came, and I wasn't going to push back the deadline because I kind of refused to do that. Like, I don't want to put it out there and then say, "Hey, sorry, I'm lazy." So I wrote the short story, but it was, I don't want to call it half-assed, but it was not 100% of what it could have been. It did not have my full potential in it because it was like work. It was like, oh, I have to write this essay for my class and it's due on Saturday, so I better just do it, even though I don't want to. And I think that's the key, is that I didn't want to do it, and the story suffered because of it. I have gone back over the years and tweaked it quite a bit. I still don't know if it's really what it could be, but I think that was the biggest lesson I learned from that experience was don't force it. Give yourself a deadline, sure, but make it a reasonable deadline so that you can work towards it naturally and not force yourself to just crap out something.
Right, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's what it'll be if you just force it out. It's just crap. So at least for me, I mean, I don't speak for everyone, but.
And then the last thing before they got into viewer questions was touched on real life events. Atkins says he uses it, doesn't change a whole hell of a lot, uses it as inspiration, and it doesn't bother him if someone's like, "Oh, I know what this is." He's like, "Okay." And then Unger doesn't really use it real life events. Like, if she sees stuff, she might incorporate things, but it's not, you can't say, "Oh, this happened in 2017, but you're using the event now in her new book," or whatever. Like, you don't know that it's just inspiration, yes, but it's not, verbatim what happened in the event.
So it's just like a starting point.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, I'm kind of like in between the Atkins, like, yeah, I do it sometimes, but I also am like, kind of give a shit of what people think. Starting to lean towards, like, I don't really give a shit what people think, if like they can pick out like what I'm talking about or what I use, because
at
least you're reading it. I got one, read, someone viewed it and read it.
Yeah. I mean, I still, it's like, when it comes to like using like personal experiences, I think in some way, and I think I mentioned this before, but using those like raw experiences as inspiration, I feel like actually better the story, because you're not trying to come up with something, like you're drawing on something very real. And that makes the story a lot more genuine in many ways.
Yeah.
Even though it's fictionalized here and there, and it's, embellished, to make it much more readable or much more enjoyable or much more impactful. And that's kind of been my takeaway on writing about personal experiences over the last couple of years, because I have like done it a lot more than I used to.
Well, and then sometimes I use, thought about what Unger said, and I was like, like, I know I've talked about Rue a lot here, but I picked a certain person and created a story around the certain person. So it's like, it wasn't a real life event, but it was a real person. So it kind of like sits in between the two.
Yeah.
Trying to think of the word. The two authors' opinions, or opinions on like what they think about or care about. Anyway, well, that was pretty. And then they got into viewer questions, and then it was it. I mean, it was quick.
Yeah. Any good questions or any questions worth noting, I guess, that weren't, how do you write books?
Well, one of them was like, what the hell does, like, the guy, it was stupid. The guy Atkins was wearing a hat that had a G on it, and in the chat someone wrote, "What does the G stand for on your hat?" I'm like,
gosh,
so unnecessary.
I wonder if they imagine that would be one of the first questions they get asked.
I think now that you say that, the real life event part was a question. That was one of the questions, so that's what stuck out. I mean, then they actually answered my question. Atkins did about what is it like writing? Like, how did you get picked to write for the Robert B. Parker estate? And all he said was like, you had to send 50 pages of the character that the character that you want to write a story for, and then just see if you're picked by his wife or Robert Parker's wife, longtime agent, and then the editor. So it's like, that's interesting that, he got picked for it because he's done, I think, 4.
Wow.
And then the new one's coming out in January. And he actually, without giving it away, he talked about how he used I can't remember if it was a book event. I don't know if it was like something like something that they did last night, or he was promoting his new book. But he experienced a man talking about how he didn't like someone in Congress, and like they wish they should get a bullet in their head. Like, he just was saying it out loud, just so everybody could hear it, like in the audience. That's what he was saying. The guy in the audience was just saying that.
Oh, it's an audience member to.
Yeah.
Wow. Wait,
So
what was this during? This was during the one you watched today?
No. It was he told that story, that from a different experience, that he was like, yeah, that this Congress person should have like a bullet in their head.
Damn.
So that's what like the premise is, in a way, and that's how it collected, and then that's how it connected to using real life events. Oh, that was pretty much the gist of it. I know that took up most of the episode today, but I thought it was interesting, and how I was hoping to hear a little bit more on how, like, what their process is. I mean, I know Atkins has his own desk, so he has to actually go to work. It's not in his house.
Like,
he has to go to his office. He has to go to his office that looks over, like, I don't know, lives in Mississippi, so he looks over
the entire state. Sorry.
Yeah, but he looks over like a water bed or something. I don't know. It's very inspirational, I guess. But
so here's a question. So the guy that writes for Robert B. Parker, does those novels, does it just say that is his name included?
Yeah. So it says, there are 3 separate series that Robert B. Parker wrote. One is the Spencer novels that Ace Atkins writes. One is Jesse Stone series that there were actually 2 or 3 that do it. Like, one just did 2 and it was like, I'm good. And then so someone else jumped in. And then there's Sonny Randall, but that's not a big, that's definitely on the bottom of the 3. There's only a couple. But on all 3 of them, like, it says Robert B. After he died, then it will say Robert B. Parker's Fool's Paradise by whatever, by the author. So it's still like the big print is Robert B. Parker, but then on the bottom of the cover, it has the author who wrote it on there. So if we don't want to write actual novels, we can just piggyback off of someone else's ideas and just create our own.
Wait, that would be, well, assuming that you can fully understand and realize all the characters, it could be a good idea.
Yeah. So it's like, it would say Robert B. Parker's whatever, and then on the bottom it would say Ace Atkins or Mike Lupica or whoever wrote the other one. Ace. And then you have the big author picture on the back.
Of course. I had to do that for my next book. Just put a giant picture of my face on the back.
So that was like, it makes me wish that they had, like, or if they had like a book promotion to go to one of those things and like hear them read, but then also be able to ask real like more questions on how,
What does your hat mean?
what's your hat mean? And not have like 10 minutes to do it because it was only an hour. Like, I think they
Yeah.
should have extended it a little bit more.
Well, that particular event is that over the course of a few days? I mean,
So yeah, the it's like a webinar series they call it. They've done it before. They didn't do it last year,
yeah,
but
my grandfather actually recommended that I attend because it used to be in physical locations, right?
yeah,
And I remember he mentioned, I don't remember if it was years ago, and I never went because I'm kind of lazy sometimes. But
yeah, no, it was because if they actually allowed people to attend, it would be better.
yeah,
I feel like so you can ask more questions and it didn't have to be an hour.
yeah,
I don't know if
hopefully,
it was only an hour because of the Zoom time or what.
yeah, it probably is just scheduling. I
Yeah,
guess like one benefit to the Zoom calls is that everyone didn't have to come to the Tampa Bay area to do it. I'm sure they
right.
just zoomed in from
Well,
wherever
no,
they are.
actually, they were here.
Oh, really?
They were in
Oh,
Tampa. Yeah,
well, I'll scratch
yeah,
that.
yeah. The way they had it was the main. It was like a Zoom of the three. It was the two authors and then like the moderator, I guess, who was like prompting questions or that already had come up, and then there was someone who was overlooking it all would pop up and then ask the viewer questions that you typed in. Yeah. But again, I think it'd be beneficial for both of us, but then also other authors to like try to attend
Oh, yeah.
a
I
book
mean,
signing or something.
yeah. I mean, any kind of, I don't know if that would be called a convention. What's going on now, but any kind of event where you get all these authors together. I mean, that's definitely worth reaching out and being a part of.
Yeah. Well, that's my. I guess that was a very Andy driven episode, but
Yeah.
that's kind of what it's kind of what you. That's what I learned. So it was interesting. Biggest takeaway was, I guess, character development in a way, and then being able to just sit down and just write. Don't have a set. I can't remember which one said, but don't have a set. Don't have a word count. Don't have a set a number of pages you want to do in a day, because that
Yeah.
once you start forcing things, it's not going to be good.
Yeah. That's a key
Yeah.
concept there is
So
don't force anything. Let it all happen organically. But here's a random question that kind of ties to that. When it comes to, I guess maybe you haven't encountered this yet, but when it comes to word counts for a novel, like for your novel you're working on, do you have a goal in mind for how far you want to get or for how long you want the novel to be?
I guess from all the ones that I've read, I'm like, okay, I guess the average is I have to hit at least 200 pages.
So I think 200 pages is about like 54,000 words.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, I don't really want to have a word count or a page count, but it's
Mm.
like, okay, 200 is like you got to go to like this
Yeah.
one that I'm reading now, or one that I just got out of the library today is 305.
Yeah. So
But
like
another one's like 275, 250.
200 that's like I shoot for that. And then like I just want to get close to it. Like if I end up at 198, I'm at 198. But like I always try to cross 50,000. That's kind of like the limit. Cause like if I don't like that one book I talked about, the short novella is like, it's this one and it's like really, really thin. And
Yeah.
I think it's what, yeah. So I used to be absolute crap at like uh, formatting everything. So there are no page numbers on this, but I have since fixed that. Don't worry. If you buy this on Amazon, it's not garbage, but I don't know. I was hoping there'd be page numbers in there so I could reference how many pages it was, but rip. Anyways, moving on. Not very long, and so I didn't want to have that problem again in the future, which is why now I shoot for like 50,000 minimum, and then uh, more if I can add it to the story, but I don't force anything.
Well, like that's if I ever wanted to publish my uh, Irrational series. I don't really like that the title, but it's only 12 pages.
Yeah, or you could do a collection. So like conveniently available is my
Look at
short
that.
story anthology, which let's see if it has page numbers in it.
How many page numbers
No,
is that? Oh,
that's that's sad. Yeah, I missed out a lot of stuff back then. I would just make Word documents and then say, okay, make a paperback, and then it's not a it's not a one-to-one fit. Like I used to put these little stars, little dots, to separate paragraphs. Like
Mhm.
look how that turned out.
Oh God.
Yeah. So
Oh, that's all over the map.
yeah, it's pretty bad. So I just want to point this out. I bought this like 3 years ago, and I've since reformatted all of these so that everything fits properly, and you don't have garbage crap. So yeah, I mean, my very first novel, The Fairly Human, used to be kind of like this. I hope it had page numbers, but I honestly don't know. It was just really poorly done, but yeah. Well, that goes into a whole other part of publishing novels is formatting and making sure that everything is correct. Because like you can type it all out in your Word doc, but the margins have to be a specific way.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it. If you don't have it correct, then you end up with garbage like this.
I think I definitely, if I ever come to that point, or when did I come to that point? I'm definitely sending it out to somebody, I'll just take some, money out of the bank account and be like, okay, I'm not going to try to self-publish this stuff.
No,
I don't think so. Yeah. Especially because I don't want to have to go back, and I don't want to have something, no offense, like that already out, that like you got dot, 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 dot. It looks like it's, connect the dots for, form a star on like a kid's menu.
The problem is like, I just like there is, so like Microsoft Word makes it easy to format. The problem is I just didn't know how. And so I did a lot of other things that I thought would format it the way that I needed it to be, but it actually kind of made it worse.
So if I went into my novel draft and went to the format, was there like a tab that says, I don't know, book?
There might be, but it's like what I did was I looked at the requirements that Kindle need or Amazon needs to publish paperback and hardcover books.
Mm-hmm.
And they include the margins that you need and all the stuff. And then basically you can just like you can adjust all that in Microsoft Word under various tabs and stuff like that. But it's pretty easy to do. I would say like if you can manage to get an agent or something like that, like by all means, that's a much better way to go through because you'll actually get paid probably. You'll actually make more money, It's just a strenuous process.
Well, that's why they both said writing is what is it? Writing is for love, not financial well-being.
Truer words have never been spoken.
Yeah. I was like, you know what? You're not wrong. Yeah. You guys still make more cash than I do.
Yeah, it's a difficult. We'll have to go through that on a future episode. Try to, or maybe maybe one of our future guests can go through their process of getting published through a traditional publishing company. But if you do spend any money at all, though, I would say it's worthwhile either to hire just an editor to make sure your work works, or also a cover designer, because that what do they say? People they say never judge a book by its cover, but a lot of people do.
Yeah.
So you don't want something boring like this because there's nothing very enticing about that. You want something like that. That looks kind of like, whoa, there's something going on here. I want to check out this book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then again, I mean, my first book, I hired a cover designer, and I might have made a couple extra sales on that, but it looks cool though. I'll say that.
There you go.
It's a picture of downtown St. Pete, but like the water in the bay is just gone and it's all dried up and looks very apocalyptic.
There you go.
Yeah. That's all I got to say about that.
Well, we've definitely hit the allotted time frame today. Yeah. Hopefully this is a good post-Thanksgiving listen, because no one's going to want to do anything after eating 5 pounds of food.
Yeah, I was going to say this is a good thing to just throw it on the TV, eat whatever's left of the turkey, the stuffing, maybe some pumpkin pie, and then just lay there and listen to our glorious, graceful words on all of these fascinating topics.
Uh,
Because nobody wants to read when you're stuffed. You just want to sit there and consume content with your eyes and ears.
very good content, I would have to say.
Yes, of course.
Oh man. Yeah. Also, the sun is slowly setting into the bedroom, so I have to hold up my shoulder.
Yeah, I was gonna say
block it.
that reminded me of that one song, "Blinded by the Light."
Yeah, pretty much. So
damn near lost my vision. Well, anyways, I guess it sounds like we're wrapping this up since it probably has been like a solid hour.
Yeah.
All the way back when we were talking about your what was it? Yeah,
Italian food. The 7 fishes Italian food.
Escargot, or what was it called? It was calamari. Well, you don't
calamari.
call it
calamari.
Is it calamari? Is that the same thing?
Yes.
Different word?
Yes.
Italian
and then alige are anchovies.
That's gross. Okay.
I guarantee you. Okay. I'm going to end it on this, but I guarantee you the way it's made, you would I just handed you pasta because it disintegrates. Like you don't know what's in there. And I said, it's just pasta with, olive oil. You wouldn't know. No clue.
I mean, in that case, why add the anchovies at all? If you can't tell.
Because you can tell there's a fish taste to it, but you don't know it's anchovies.
What brand is it? Is it that
I don't know. I don't
King Oscar brand?
I don't keep tabs on what she buys.
Is it like canned stuff from the
probably
fish out here? Can you buy fish anchovies?
Yeah,
frozen. I don't
probably at Mazzaro's or something.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Mazzaro's.
Oh man, yeah.
Shout out to Mazzaro's.
Shout out to Mazzaro's.
It's arguably probably the best place for Italian cuisine and deli goods and other fresh items in the Tampa Bay area.
Yep.
I've heard that people come all the way from South America just to get some of their like pre-made lasagna.
I don't know. I've never heard that, but
I mean, I read it on Reddit.
Read it on the Onion.
Yeah.
Read
it on the Onion.
Probably. All right, let's wrap this up. My shoulder hurts.
Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow, like, and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want. Actually, even if you don't want to leave a comment, I command you, leave a comment.
Check out the merch too.
Yeah. If you want to buy a t-shirt that says the Writer's Block, it's available. If you want a t-shirt that says the Writer's Block with Andy's face on it, let us know in the comments and I will make it happen.
I don't know if we really want that.
Oh, well, all you need is one comment that says I want this and I will make it happen.
Oh God. I guess
10 comments and I'll put my face on it.
I guess if that sells some stuff, sure. What the hell? I don't know if really wants my face on a back of a t-shirt.
All right, how about this? Okay, so leave a comment. Whose face do you want on the t-shirt? Mine or his? We'll make it happen.
Okay.
But of course, you already know that everyone wants your face on the t-shirt.
I don't know about that.
I'm pretty sure. I get DMs on Twitter all the time. Where's that merch with Andrew's face on it?
We need to end this.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, thanks for viewing this content. Check out our social media. Check out our works. He's got stories out. I got a new story out. Let us know if it's good or if it's garbage, and then we'll see you.
Might have more. I don't know.
Or might have. Hopefully, had a good Thanksgiving.
Yes, that too.
We'll see you next month, and hopefully the world hasn't exploded. So, yeah. On that note, see ya.
See ya.